The best way to tell a team and if they're connecting with the coach is if they're getting their ass kicked. Are they still trying to play as if they're trying to, like, there's a shot at winning this game still?
How is that chatter like on the line? How different is it from high school to college to when you get to the league?
It never changes. It's every play, particularly in the NFL. I didn't realize it's more like you hate each other, but once you get to the NFL, you're both on the same field, and it's a form of camaraderie. Even no matter how bad talking it is and all this, for the most part, there's a mutual respect between the two players.
Do you think a lot of guys, when they get out of the league, sort of fall into a depression?
Depends on like how high their aspirations were when they played and how, did they achieve that goal. The thing I miss most is just the camaraderie more than anything.
Do you think about, I need to put X amount of money away per paycheck?
Honestly, my rookie year, no.
University of Washington, once you get there, things are different than they were at the high school level.
Dude, first practice, I seriously questioned if football was for me.
Thank you for joining me today. I am excited to have Jabari Issa on this show. Jabari is an ex-NFL player, used to play for the Arizona Cardinals, Houston Texans, a couple of other teams as well. A native of San Mateo, alumni of San Mateo High School, correct?
That's
correct.
correct.
Got that right.
Native of Foster City, but yeah.
Native of Foster City, but San Mateo High School.
San Mateo High School.
And one of the most fascinating things is that he was also in Tom Brady's draft class, the guy who's still in the league right now at his age. I mean,
crazy.
More power to him on that one. And I'm sure you have some stories about high school between your guys' team and his team that we might get into. But we're going to spend a lot of time talking about life in the NFL, how he got there, any advice he can give for some of the new kids who are trying to come up in the league, how things have changed, and also we'll probably get into CTE. But first of all, thank you, Jabari, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Really appreciate you coming out on a Saturday. I know you have a lot of things to do, but to spend a couple hours talking to me about what's going on, it's I'm really appreciative of it. So
cool. Gets me out of the house, man, for sure.
That's a good way to look at it right there.
All right.
So before we get started, why don't we give the audience a little bit of background of who you are. So how about give me about a minute or so spiel about who you are, and then we'll jump right into it.
All right. So grew up in Foster City. I went there. I actually started out by Ocean Beach, then moved to Foster City. And I was about the 4th or 5th grade, something like that. Went to San Mateo High School, played ball. Didn't play ball until high school. Got to high school, did other sports. Went to University of Washington, played ball there. Graduated, got drafted, played some more ball, and then eventually, the game got tired of me, so I had to retire. Then did other jobs, working at Enterprise and real estate agencies and other things like that. Just trying to find my second, third, fourth career.
Third, fourth career.
Maybe.
And you were a defensive lineman, correct?
Defensive lineman. Pretty much, yeah, defensive lineman. I started out as a defensive tackle, but then I was kind of an in-betweener dude, like when I got to the NFL. So they kind of just put me kind of on the defensive end side sometimes defensive tackle.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get into football specifically in high school? Was it just, because of your size? Because you're like 7'2", right?
Me? No, I'm like 6 foot. I'm only like 6'6". I probably look taller because I'm just bigger too, big and tall. So people always think I get like Shaquille O'Neal like maybe twice a month.
Really?
Yeah, like just at least twice a month since he went to the NBA. It's like, oh,
holy shit!
Shaq. So
look at that.
But as far as how getting started, I didn't really, like I said, I didn't start playing until my freshman year in high school because back then they did Pee Wee football, Pop Warner football. They did it by weight. Mm-hmm. So if I would say I was in the 4th grade, I'd be playing with like 7th and 8th graders because of my weight. And I don't think my folks were cool with that as far as just
gotcha.
my body mature fast enough. But honestly, football, I liked watching football, especially when the Niners played and all that stuff. But as far as I wasn't super duper into it, knowing all the teams and I just knew who the Niners were and who were on the Niners. But, some people go into it, know stats and all these other things. But I was pretty real rounded as far as just other sports and all things like that.
Gotcha. All right. So your experience getting on the football team, was it like just they said, hey, we want you on the defensive line? How does that process work?
It's pretty funny. I didn't know really too much about positions in football until I started playing football. So I had a friend, William Little, told me that I should probably play defensive end, and that's the reason why I chose. Because coach asked me, "What do you want to play?" I was like, "Well, offensive line, defense." I said, "Play defensive end." I said, "Well, we don't really have a defense end type thing, so why don't you play offensive tackle and defensive line?" That's the reason I even chose defensive end. Otherwise, I might have chose now that I know that, I probably want to play more tight end and more outside linebacker.
Gotcha.
Because I was pretty fast, and then I just don't think I probably been faster or probably been better obviously better as a D tackle, but it seems like for me anyway that the less space you use as far as in those bigger years, like I wasn't as comfortable in space by say my senior year because I just wasn't familiar with it. As opposed to if I started out my freshman year being in that open space, and I'd probably be more comfortable as a linebacker, but I just always, I didn't see the field as much because I was playing D tackle, defensive end now. So
gotcha.
That's all I know. So
well, it makes sense because maybe at the time when you don't know exactly what goes into each position, in hindsight 2020, do you think the defensive side of the ball was more for like, yeah, you really want to get out there and get to somebody, whereas offensive tackle, I just want to make sure that he's not getting sacked. So is there like a different mindset in terms of how aggressive you are?
Oh, it's totally. You know what? I thought that initially until I got to possibly like the college level. You think that I was pretty more, because I did play both sides. I didn't get off the field, honestly, because I want to say one year we only had about 26 players on our team.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, it's like 26 or no more than 30. But we had to play punt, kickoff return, field goal, PAT. So I never left the field. Me and my boy DC and Sean G, and a couple other players. But as far as offensive defense, I thought playing offensive tackle you had to be more passive. But once I got to the college, guys are assholes, dude. Like for real, like super aggressive and all that. And then the reason I chose I like defense more is because when you're playing offensive tackle, only time your name is recognized is because you're messing up pretty much, right? You're either holding or got a sack on you. Plus, you don't have control of what you can do as far as your ability. As opposed to defense, you can make a play, any play, Offense, it's more working together to get to the greater good. And the defense is the same way, but we're all trying to make a play, all within our, certain rules. As far as we don't want to go outside those rules too much, but anybody can make a play as opposed to offense. They're calling a play. Quarterback's going to get the ball. He's going to either hand it off or he's going to throw it down the field. Yeah, and they all win. Obviously, that's great, but I mean nowadays it might be a little bit more. People might pay more attention to offensive linemen, particularly because there's podcasts like this, or there's offensive linemen like that. Focus on that. So, look, that's a great block there. And that's more paid. But back then, it was just, offensive linemen were just fat dudes that, that either did their job or didn't do their job pretty much. So
that's a way to look at it.
Yeah.
I always want to ask this. So how is that chatter like on the line in the game? And how different is it from high school to college to when you get to the league? Nobody sees it on TV because obviously there's no mics down there, but you can just see them like the head movements in my own. Yeah. Who's jawing at who?
It never changes as far as it doesn't get any more in depth. It may be more, I want to say maybe less personal. Like you don't talk about a person's wife and kids and moms as much as you do in the pros. It does happen and things do, and it gets to be pretty good, intense games. But as far as the jawing, it's every play. It depends on just the team, depends on if there's history behind that team.
So it really matters if you have a rivalry where the division or a high school
the person
rivalry?
or just the person and it's funny because there's tiers to it. There's people that just talk the talk but don't back it up. That's kind of an eye roller. But then the guys that can talk and back it up, and then the other person that can talk the talk and back it up, then it's the competition juices actually really flow, and that's when you have a really good. It's funny because it's almost like, particularly in the NFL, I didn't realize it's more like like you hate each other, but once you get to the NFL, you're both on the same field, and there's a form of camaraderie, even against the other team. Like, maybe not against the Seahawks and the Niners or anything like that, but there's always a mutual respect. Even no matter how bad talking it is and all of this, for the most part, there's a mutual respect between the two players.
Good. Well, that's good to hear because sometimes you're like, wow, these guys are really getting into it. Yeah. And then you hear the one-offs, like I think it was Michigan and Michigan State. Sometime this year they got into it in the locker room or like, well, okay, you guys took it too far there. And cops are being called. Yeah.
Like my thing with that whole situation is what's that guy doing there by himself for Michigan? What's he doing there all the way up in the tunnel? that deep. Like, he must have been jawing off. I'm not condoning that the Michigan State player should have done that, what he did, but kind of had it coming. Like, you're rolling deep, and they just beat their butt. Like, why would you talk more trash by yourself? Like, why would you put yourself in that situation? But that's just me.
It's like the game within the game, but when the main game's over, it's like, all right, time to take the foot off the gas. And if you don't, things like that probably happen.
Exactly. It's there's a general rule of thumb. General rule of thumb is, leave it on the field.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever happened on the field, and once you walk off the field, it's you just you have to compartmentalize that part. It's like that just was happening on the field, and there's parts where there's something that gets beyond the line if you gotta take it on the field regardless, or on or off the field. Like, there's things that happen there.
Yeah, that's true.
But for the most part, you try to leave it on the field in general. Particularly, you have to do that, especially like if you want to be in a good team with practice and all that stuff, and because practice can get more intense than the actual game because you're going against the same person, especially in camp.
Yeah,
same people all the time, and tired of seeing their face, and it's just you get real ornery. So you have to make sure that I actually had a teammate of mine break another teammate's mine's jaw like after practice because it brought it off the field.
Wow.
Yeah. So it can happen. It does happen, and we're all human beings and all that stuff. But for the most part, yeah.
I believe it, man. I can only imagine.
All
so you did 4 years all through high school, correct? Or did you go off and on?
No, 4 years all in high school.
So at what point did you say, hey, this is something that actually can take me to college? Were you thinking about college period at that point, or was it because, hey, the way I'm playing it, this is actually something that could get me into a bigger school?
What do you mean bigger school, like transfer to a bigger school?
Whether if you want to go out of state, because you went to University of Washington.
I did,
so
yes.
to me, that's a big school.
Okay.
I mean, Pac-10 school,
Gotcha,
major university, big football team.
Okay.
Maybe compared to, let's say, if you want to go to a junior college to start out, you're not really sure. So for me, going to a big school like that, I was like, okay, that's like a cream of the crop.
Yeah.
Did you always have ambitions to get to a school like that? Or was it through football that you're like, hey, this might take me there? Or did football even matter? Did you just stop and then you kind of just walked into the team there?
As far as going, I didn't really think that it was a possibility until, honestly, probably like my senior year, about my senior year. Like, I would get letters and whatnot, and that's cool. And we always had people that would get letters in high school. You'd see that a lot of times, but, you never saw the end result as far as them signing the actual scholarship or stuff like that. And there's a number of things, not just because of talent, because I have guys that are way more talented than me that, for whatever reason, it just didn't pan out. But with me, it was more when I started taking the recruiting trips. When I actually went, taking flights and like, oh, okay, this is actually my first one in Washington State actually gave me a scholarship. They offered a scholarship, my recruiting trip, my first trip. So I was like, okay, I guess at least I can go to Wazoo, I guess,
Yeah.
if anything else. But I fortunately took all 5 of my trips and then ended up going to UW. But it wasn't like a lifelong dream to play college football, even professional football. I've just been actually blessed. Things dominoes just fell in the right place, and just it happened for me for sure.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So did you feel like you had the traditional or typical high school football rivalries? Because your rivalry at the time was Sarah High School, correct?
Sarah High School. No, it was Burlingame High School.
Burlingame was the big one. All
Burlingame
right.
was a big rival. That's a big rivalry. I want to say, I think you probably beat them once out of my 4 years. It's just unfortunate. That rivalry has actually gotten out of hand, Burlingame's. We have some catching up to do.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So look at that. How many guys on your team actually went to the league with you?
From high school?
From high school.
None, actually. I want to say I had about 4 teammates that went college level, that played college. But it's a crazy, it's crazy how small the number is as far as like how many people are in high school and how that filters out to the professional level. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, at least here, there's other schools where this powerhousing is different nowadays because they have schools and transfers and all that stuff in high school and academies and all that stuff. But just a authentic, organic way as far as Foster City's not a small town because it's in the Bay Area, but I mean, it's kind of a small town compared to like some places I guess Texas there's some small towns in Texas. But
places in the South, like within the SEC conference, so a lot of the schools down there, it's like a religion. Like this is how we're preparing you.
Yeah.
It's like it's on a different level.
It's your only way out for sure. Exactly. Or even like Los Angeles, they put out a lot of players too.
Yeah, true.
Bay Area puts out a lot of, like Northern California, we put out a lot of players. It's just not from one consistent school. It's not like a Mater Dei or something like that. I wouldn't say the closest school that we probably have is like probably Sarah, obviously. De La Salle probably puts them out.
De La Salle, yeah.
De La Salle puts them out. Antioch, I think, does too.
Yeah, you were playing when they had that long winning streak, like 200 some odd games.
Yeah, that was
De La
crazy.
Salle was playing, like, I was like, how's that even possible that you go that many games?
Right?
And,
it's like they're not playing anybody, that's why. But they're playing good players. They're playing good teams for sure.
Do you have any stories playing against Tom Brady?
You know what? I didn't play against Tom Brady in high school. I actually played with him in the Senior Bowl, and I think he played in the East-West Shrine. I can't remember if he played in the East-West Shrine game or not. But I had a buddy of mine, Mike Hanchett. He went to Sarah High School, and he grew up with me like in the same neighborhood. And he would always talk about Brady this, Brady that, and how good Brady's this, Brady. Like ever since like freshman year, I was like, all right, bro. Like, get off the guy's jock. But then, I met him a couple house parties. At the time, I think he got a full ride scholarship to Sarah, which we didn't really get too many players. We had about, I think out of all my high school areas, we had about, I'd say about 5 or 6 people that go like Division I scholarships. So around my time, but it wasn't really all the time thing. So okay, this is what D1 quarterback looks like. Honestly, I wasn't really impressed when I first saw him. I was like, but he was like 6'6" dude. He's a pretty tall dude. But then when I saw him his senior year, I was like, okay, like in senior year at the Senior Bowl and all that stuff, and I saw why, what he does, and guy's a hell of a leader, man. Like he's just like one of the dudes, one of the boys. Like with quarterbacks, you either have quarterbacks I think that are good leaders that are just one of the dudes. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes quarterbacks have all this responsibility put on their shoulders, like leader of the team, all this, and it goes to their head. Good or bad way, but they kind of feel like sometimes they have to get this responsibility, like they have to be upper middle management compared to CEO, compared to the coach. They have to be like a coach light pretty much. Mm-hmm. But Brady's just one of the dudes, and I'm saying holds people accountable. When I saw that, and even in their Senior Bowl, holding people accountable to plays and stuff like that. But still goofing off and having a good time and whatnot. But when it's time to get serious, got serious. When it's time to goof off, goofed off. But yeah,
that's awesome, man.
I didn't see him playing. I didn't see him being, 7 Super Bowls.
Yeah. Back then you didn't see that guy's gonna get a full handful of rings, right?
Handful of rings in like 20 years in the league. I didn't see that at all. But
yeah, even back then, just the idea of staying 20 years in the league, unless you're a punter, you just don't think like, who stays in the league 20 years?
Yeah, for sure, dude. It's crazy,
man. So how about University of Washington? Once you get there, obviously everything's just much more because you're dealing with the Pac-10 schools. So everything, they got guys coming in from all over the country playing on the team. How was that dynamic when you first got there? How things are different than they were at the high school level?
Dude, the first practice, I thought, I seriously questioned if football was for me. Like first time ever in my life.
Wow.
Because not so much, it was only freshman practice too, because I want to say the first 3 days is pretty much practice with just the incoming freshmen, so you get used to like the routine and all that stuff. But the coach I had was all smiles and, we want you, Jabari, and all this stuff. Turned it to another level once I got to the field. Once he had me there, it's like, where's the coach that was, smooth, was recruiting me and then making me feel, like I'm the man. It's like, Coach Hart didn't talk bad or anything like that. He expected a lot out of you. But man, it's like, oh my God, this is like the intensity was. I'd say high school games probably like. I'd probably say like it's a 7, but even practice in college was like an 11 compared. Yeah, it was crazy, dude.
Wow.
And then you add in like, I'm 18, but then you have 22-year-old men. That are starting and whatnot and been in a college weight room program for however long. I didn't even have a weight room. I had decent weights, but I didn't lift weights like some of these, like maybe Aragon had a way better weight room than we did at San Mateo. So I didn't really lift weights seriously until I got my freshman year in college. So,
wow. Yeah, you're dealing with like an actual full-on like weightlifting facility, athletic training. Be like, oh, I didn't even know all these things existed.
Exactly.
And then, how's that pressure like to just compete with the rest of the guys? Do you go there every day thinking, hey, if I don't perform, they're gonna take away my scholarship, or I'm not gonna get the opportunity? Are you thinking you put all that pressure on your shoulders at the time?
I didn't. Not really. I didn't really. No, I didn't put my pressure because honestly, my game plan was just to, redshirt my freshman year, what I'm saying, get stronger because I think that was like my major thing I needed to work on during that freshman year, and then, come back freshman or redshirt freshman year and just contribute. But apparently they saw it differently because the first game gets Arizona State. I'm thinking I'm still a redshirt. I'm still traveling with the team, so I did good enough that way. And then all of a sudden I'm in the game like, hey, Jabari, going in, because it's like, I want to say it was probably about 100 degrees. I'd say about 98 degrees at night. So guys are cramping up left and right, and Jabari, you're in. Like, what do you mean I'm supposed to be redshirting? So I didn't put a bunch of pressure on myself like that. Because I came in through thinking, like I said, I was going to redshirt, so it wasn't that much pressure. But then I would say more pressure to perform is probably gradually towards, I want to say, my senior year, just because I had a really good junior year, and I probably could have left my junior year, but I wanted to, better my draft status.
Gotcha.
So then I put more pressure on myself that way.
Can you explain to everybody exactly what redshirting means, just so everybody has an understanding? Hey, when you redshirt, this is what what we do there.
So typically, there's 4 years of eligibility, and for typical college path, but you can get a red shirt. Most athletes can get at least 1 year, where it's more or less to get acclimated to the college speed. So either with lifting weights or just getting the playbook or whatnot. So typically you can get 5 years, so long as you want to get. I want to say the rules change, but I think nowadays you can play up to, I want to say, 3 games your freshman year, and then after that you can declare a red shirt still, which some teams do.
Gotcha.
Or you can get a medical red shirt, which is you play maybe 3 or 4 games, but you have to apply for those. But
gotcha.
For general red shirt, that's just pretty much a year to get acclimated to the college lifestyle and speed.
So you're basically just like, okay, it's not a free year, but a year where you can take your time, get everything used to it. But you're still with the team, you get an idea, but you're not expected to say, hey, guess what, you're starting tomorrow.
Exactly,
Okay.
For sure.
Gotcha. So this is one thing that comes up with a lot of college athletes is you have to work so hard just to stay on the team. You're not putting in 40 hours. You're probably putting 60, 70 hours in the weight room, the playbooks, the meetings.
Yeah. How
do you balance that with your academics? And how much of a emphasis do they really place on it, at least back then, compared to maybe how they do it now?
You have to get good at time management. That's what I tell either my daughter. She played soccer. She played sports in high school, and she had some aspirations to play in college. And just whoever I talk to that wants to play at the next level of college, you have to get your time management skills, because you have to make sure that you're getting your grades. You make sure you're at practice on time and at all these other places. But you also want to have a life too. And if you don't have good time management skills, you're gonna hate it, because you're either studying or you're lifting weights or you're practicing, and you have no time for yourself, or one of those things is gonna fall off. So definitely, it's a time management thing.
And this is at a time where student athletes couldn't make any money through the fact they were a student athlete. And now the rules have changed. I think they're still trying to figure out how that works, how student athletes can get compensated. But weightlifting, meetings, actually playing the games, plus your academics, plus you don't have any money, so you have to work a part-time job probably just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and recovery from the game. You have to ice and all that stuff, and for
exactly.
Next week. Yeah.
And then, oh, by the way, there's a party on Saturday. I'd like to go out and get out of this whole lifestyle. So that's a lot to balance, and a lot of this people don't realize that. You don't realize that in high school because you just can't process it.
Yeah.
And when you're older, you're thinking, oh, how come they couldn't figure it out back then? It's it's a lot to put on somebody's plate.
It's total, especially 18, 17, 19, or 17, 19, 20-year-old kids. I know they're technically an adult, but still kids at that age, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And you did that for 4 years.
Did that for 4 years, yeah.
Gotcha. So, man, that's incredible. At what point did you say that the NFL draft was even a possibility?
I'd say after my junior year, because I I think I had 8 or 9 sacks at my position, was kind of a lot for defensive tackle at that spot. I want to say some feelers had me out at 3rd round pick going into my junior year.
But was that ever a goal going into UW? Because some guys, it's like, hey, my dream is to get into the league.
I'm just happy to be there, bro.
Okay, awesome.
Happy to be there. Don't have to pay for no college education or anything like that. Just make sure I get some kind of diploma out of this thing is my deal, because my parents would not have it if I failed out or didn't graduate with this tremendous opportunity.
Did you finish your 4 years did you get your degree at the time before leaving? You had to go back and finish it?
Before I left.
That's a rare, isn't it?
It's very rare. I generally went to summer school. I would say I went to summer school every year except for my freshman year. Freshman and going into sophomore year, I came back home for about 6 months, whatever, or 3 months, whatever.
Well, props to you for doing that. I mean, you hear so many stories of athletes who go and they get like maybe a year's worth of college. They get drafted and then they never go back to finish it. Yeah. And for you to get it done pretty much before you get drafted, that's awesome.
That's
man.
up to my parents, because they've the ones that really instilled the importance of education, because average lifespan in football, NFL, is 3 years, and that's doing solid. So,
did you even know that stat before you were thinking about the draft? That hey, NFL players, it's not a 20-year career unless you're Tom Brady. Yeah, this is like you're going to be in it for a couple of years, have a great time, and then adios after that point. Did you know that going into it?
I would say generally, yeah. It started coming around more often. I think that stat kind of popped up right around when I was getting ready for the NFL, not because of that's what I was speaking, but I want to say that more and more people start talking about that and they start noticing that. It's like, it's 3 years. Like, holy cow. Kind of like almost how there's a stat, most NFL games, the differentials like within 3 points.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a newer thing that people start paying attention to. It's kind of the same thing with the years of average career in football is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So your last year, so your senior year, as you're getting ready to go get yourself ready for the NFL draft, how were you ramping up your routine, saying, okay, I have to make sure I hit all these markers here? Were you able to take it up another notch? Were you really get on yourself saying, hey, my numbers aren't there yet?
It was kind of difficult, and I hate using excuses, but coach got fired, so I had to got a whole new coach, whole new scheme, and a whole new kind of position type philosophy type scheme. I went from an aggressive attack style defense, which is more like we were like a 46 Bear front actually, which is like old school Chicago Bears. So it's pretty much just get penetration up the field as much as possible and let the offense kind of figure out how to get past all these bodies. That's
Gotcha.
kind of how our defense was. But then we went to a 3-4 where my position was more to engage with the tackle and kind of 2-gap and let the linebackers kind of clean up everything else. Mm-hmm. So my numbers were drastically down, particularly that, because I want to say for a 3-4, more of the outside linebackers are going to get more of their edge rushing, as opposed to when I was playing the D tackles or the ends, they would get more of the rushing towards the passer. But neither here nor there. I definitely had pressure. I want to say wasn't performing. I want to say earlier in my senior year. I wasn't performing as I wanted to, and then things started clicking and started getting my groove later on in the year. Did go from a 3rd round pick probably to a 6th round pick, so didn't go quite as planned. If I was honest, I probably would have left my junior year, knowing what I know now. But then again, if I thought that way, I'd probably get drafted to another team. Meet somebody else, or there's this whole other things that I would be missing out on if I, did leave my junior year. So I'm glad I stuck it out.
The interesting thing about what you just said that nobody ever thinks about is that something is, well, not simple, but something as small as the coach getting fired and a new guy coming in saying, we're going to change things up. You were at a base 4-3 defense throughout your first 3 years, correct? Yeah. So for people out there that don't know, it basically means there's 4 guys on the defensive line and then 3 people in the back, meaning 3 linebackers. So when you have 4 guys on the line, there's a better chance that you're going to get through to get the sacks, to get the stops, whatever. When you go to a 3-4, there's now 3 guys on the line and 4 linebackers. So your job is pretty much, like you said, I need to clear a path, if you will, for the linebackers. So they're the ones who are now getting the bigger stats. Like,
Exactly.
oh, that linebacker got how many sacks? Like, he must be the best thing to sliced bread. It's like, yeah, how do you think he got to the line? Because so-and-so, because I'm
eating up the bodies for
exactly.
sure.
So you're right. You know, had you known what you know, and if you would have gone in your junior year, your numbers at that time would have been like, oh, this guy is like maybe a late first rounder or whatever.
Totally.
I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but you now that you can see the bigger picture, like maybe things happen for a reason. But it's easy at that age to just kind of get on yourself saying, hey, you know, man, it's because of A, B, and C, this is the reason why my numbers didn't do well. And then you could go on that whole, you know, sort of woe is me, Pat, but you didn't do it. You're like, hey, you know what? This is the way it is. My numbers are down compared to what they were last year or what they could have been, but I'm happy with my performance. I did the best thing that I could, and I'm happy with where I'm at. So how was your experience going through the combine? Or did you do the combine?
Went through combine. Combine was wild. It was almost like it's almost like a slave auction, if I'll be honest. Like, had us in our underwear. They were videotaping us doing squats and stuff like that in our underwear. Not underwear, but like shorts and no shirt. Had doctors prying at your hands and all that stuff. People asking all kind of questions. They weren't really doing too much of the asking stupid questions to piss you off type thing just yet. Like, but I never really had any issues coming out as far as like anger issues or outburst issues or anything like control issues or anything like that coming out. So there's no flag on me for that. So if I had that kind of impulse control issue, maybe coming out of high school or coming out of college, they might have been asking me questions about my mom and stuff, like personal questions that just see it to get a rise out of me. But I'm a pretty chill dude, so I didn't get those questions.
Well, by the way, before I forget, that's so important because going back to just the college lifestyle, balancing everything with time, on top of that, you got to keep your own act together, because if people start saying, hey, you know, this guy's a hothead, or, you know, he's going to lash out, whatever. Yeah. When you go to the combine and these NFL teams are going to spend big money on you, they're doing a full background check. They're talking to neighbors and friends of neighbors. Hey, how was he? Whatever. And they're like, they get deep into your life. People don't realize that. It's not just what's his numbers on paper.
It's a full-blown FBI report pretty much. So to like, I mean, if you get high enough, especially from the first round picks, because that's, especially back then, because I want to say 2 years after I got drafted. Who was it? Sam Darnold probably was like the last big name quarterback to get like a fresh or a rookie to get like big. Because back then, rookies would get like 8-year veteran salary or 8-year veteran contracts just without playing a lick of college. So I want to say Sam Darnold got like, not Sam Darnold, but Matt Stafford got like 50 million or something like that, 30 million just before he even like took a NFL snap. But that was like a big thing with the NFLPA is like, why are you guys paying? Why is all this resource, these salary cap resources going towards this freshman that's never played before or this rookie that's never played before? So they made some adjustments. But back then, so especially going back to you saying like rookie quarterbacks would get big time money, like $30 million signing bonus and stuff like that. And so they definitely have to make sure they got a great background check, make sure they're getting the right guy, you know, so.
Jeez. I mean, looking back on it, you got, God, what was that? I forgot his name, the guy from Texas, quarterback. Money.
Oh, Johnny Manziel? Manziel, for sure.
It's like, you think, okay, I can see the red flags, and I don't even go to Texas, and I don't know anything that these NFL scouts do. I see the red flags, but apparently it's like, you take that juggle. Well, you know, I mean, maybe, but the talent's so good, so we're just going to pay him. And then
if you win, if you're a winner, like you can get away with a lot more things.
So is the way of the world. You're right. If you're winning, we'll just look the other way with everything, or we'll put like the Michael Vick thing that he got in trouble for. It's like, well, if you're playing, you're winning. We're just gonna kind of, whatever.
Exactly.
They see the dollar signs at the end of the day.
Exactly. It's capitalism, baby.
Man, it's basically what it is. Yeah.
If you make me more money than you're worth than your trouble, then okay, I'll let it pass. Like look, even Antonio Brown, like
that guy, man. I mean. He was on a podcast not too long ago, the PBD podcast, and it's like I couldn't even listen to the whole thing. I mean, he's just going off on some random weird tangent. Like, dude, it's like Kanye West. It's like, I don't know what world you guys are in, man, but you definitely are making yourself look any better.
But Kanye West makes some great music.
Yeah, exactly. He makes great music.
Antonio Brown plays some great football, so I get a little more of a laugh. Like, if it had been Kanye West, before his first album.
Yeah,
like who's this guy? And probably wouldn't give him time of day. Same thing with AB, but great talent and
He's a great talent. I think what was his last game he played for the Jets or whoever it was.
Against the Jets,
he was playing against the Jets, and then he just decided Tampa Bay. That's what it was. And just like, you know what, I'm done. Take my helmet off. I'm going to the locker room. It's like, man, you don't do that. But you know, if you're Antonio Brown, you can get away with it. Then hey, you know, up to you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like it's gonna come back to bite you. Some other team that may have wanted you was like, I just don't want to deal with that headache.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't want to deal with it.
Get burned. If you burn him enough times for sure. Like, but I mean, how many passes has he gotten? No, I mean, he cussed out old boy at the Raiders.
What, Gruden?
Gruden, and I think he cussed out the GM too on the practice over some helmet, some nonsense. Bounced another team. He had some issues in Pittsburgh, but
jeez,
he just had the talents. Like, we'll take a risk on that. I mean, I'll try to rein that in for a Super Bowl because that's the ultimate decision. That's the ultimate thing that everybody's trying to get to. So I get it.
I guess I get it definitely. Going back to the combine, so you just basically thought about how it's. What do you call it? Like a slave thing?
It's almost an auction, pretty much, yeah. Slave auction almost felt like.
Man, it's like almost like you're just another like random piece here. Okay, this is number 3 stats. This is his height. This is how he did on the jump or on the 40-yard dash, whatever. Did you feel you had a good outcome in the combine?
You know what? Going back to my junior year, I tried to graduate. Well, I did graduate. I tried to graduate and train for the combine all in the same time.
Right.
So I did a lot of flying back and forth. So I felt I could have done better. I put some pretty good numbers up for my size and all that stuff, but I probably could have done better if I had just focused solely on the combine training. Like there are exercises out there, drills out there I didn't practice for.
Gotcha.
That I could have done. Like if I had just done that, if I would just practice, I probably had a way better time, but c'est la vie. It happens. But I got my diploma, so
that's the big thing right there. Something you can carry with you beyond your days in football.
Exactly.
Did you already have an idea who was looking at you back then, or plethora of teams?
Had a good feeling for a couple of them. I want to say I knew the Cardinals. They drafted me, but they called me in for the combine. Who else talked to me? Niners talked to me. I forgot who else talked to me. I want to say Tampa Bay also talked to me. So there's a few teams out there that talk to me, but as far as it's a crapshoot as far as knowing, for me anyway, if you're top 5 pick, I mean.
So you don't really get a sense at those interviews. Hey, this is where they kind of feel for me at, or they're just kind of getting basic information. Like I have no idea what they're going to do.
For me, it wasn't. Some people might, but for me, for like I said, it's a 6th-round pick, so. I mean, they didn't probably put too many resources towards, looking into my background and all that stuff. But
is that where you projected before the actual draft that you were going to be a 6th-rounder?
4th through 6th, something like that. 4th through 6th. So
all right.
Yeah.
So when you're in that, I mean, still to me, you're still getting drafted.
Yeah, for sure.
It just means you're number 100.
I'm totally grateful.
Yeah,
for sure, exactly.
So what number pick were you?
I forget what number pick I was. I know I was before Brady. That's the only thing I know.
You still hold that over his head.
That's my claim to fame. Before we got drafted before Brady.
Look at that. That's awesome, man.
Gotta have something, man.
But it changes for you as you go through the rounds, right? In terms of your contract of what you're allowed to get paid. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's more of a first rounders get probably a couple mil probably now, but I think back then they probably got 3 or 4 mil first round. Unless you're the top 10 pick. Or top 10 picks got a lot, but then it kind of just got tiered off. I want to say 2nd round picks probably got close to a couple mil. 3rd round picks probably got close to $1 million altogether. Then 4th is probably about 3/4. 5th, 6th, 7th is pretty much 3/4 all the way down to 180,000, something like that.
Gotcha. All right.
Something like that. Back then, 2000 numbers.
So during the draft, did you guys have a party at home? Or
no. I was low key, dude.
Oh,
yeah, I was low key. I wasn't trying to be there and just not get drafted and all these stuff. That's not how I operate. I can't.
I can only imagine the people who think they're going in the first round. The NFL, they have the cameras at the house with everybody with the banners and they're waiting for the hand, and then they're like, oh, that guy that they showed him having a party, but then his name didn't get called. Are we going to go back to see the aftermath?
That party's not jumping as much as it was when we first started. I'm cool on that, bro. No, I'm doing that. That wasn't even a thought, dude.
So who called you from the Cardinals?
It was a head coach, not the head coach.
Was that Denny Green at the time?
No, it was Dave McGinnis. It wasn't even him. It was because my first coach, he got fired halfway through the season when we played the Cowboys because Emmitt Smith put $2 210 yards on the ground on us, and we got beat. I think he got a 50 burger put on us.
Jeez.
So we got it was in Dallas. It was bad. So he got fired midway season. Then Dave McGinnis took over halfway, and then he was my coach for his second season with the Cardinals. I want to say I talked to the GM. I forget who it was, and then I talked to the head coach, and I talked to Joe Green, actually. Me and Joe Green, he was my actually position coach.
Joe Green was coaching the.
Yeah, he was my position coach. So that was really cool.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't even think that he was ever a coach. That's awesome.
Yeah, he was a head coach there. I forgot where else he was a head coach at, position coach at. But yeah, he was a cool dude, man.
Did you interact? Did you do that whole, was it Pepsi commercial with them?
Nah. Nah.
Just curious. So that would have been awesome. But so you get the phone call. Are you on the plane that same day to Tempe?
I want to say that next day or the next day. If next day, and you have like a press conference and all that stuff with all the draft picks. It's way more into it now than it was back then. As far as all the media requirements and all that stuff, and
gotcha.
All the hoopla around it, and all the content creating about it.
Yeah, I know now.
It's way more intense than it is back then.
Well, so what was going through your mind? Are you thinking, oh my God, I got drafted, I'm playing for the Cardinals? Are you thinking about the money? Or are you thinking about...
I was glad I just got drafted, dude. Got drafted and tried to make the team, man.
That's awesome.
That's pretty much just start there. I wanted to go to first, maybe a third round, fourth round. I was a little disappointed in myself with that, but it's like, hey, Jabari, you got drafted, bro. So
you got exactly. Yeah. So for a lot of people who don't know the actual NFL contracting part of it, you get down there and you're excited you got drafted. They pretty much, what do? They bring you in the room and say, okay, here's a stack of papers. Do they assign you an agent? Do they say, hey, hope you have a representation because someone's got to go through all this paperwork for you? How does that work?
So with the NFL, it's almost like the agent part is almost like getting recruited by a D1 school back in high school. So, which is another added caveat as far as my senior year. Like you have all these agents calling you, like they can't talk to you, like as far as it's kind of weird. They can't talk to Rick because there's rules involved and all that stuff. But they can just call and say how's it going, this and that, and try to influence your decision that way. But once after your last game, like your bowl game, then they can talk to you and all that stuff. So you get recruited pretty hard. As far as for agent wise, I went with Lee Steinberg.
That's a big name.
Yeah, it was a big name for sure. It was Joey Brannion and Dave Dunn. They were UCLA and the Duke dude, and then I signed with them. I figured that would probably do a better job leveraging as far as contracts, because NFL kind of with the way I perceived it anyway is that sometimes with a bigger agent you can get some more leverage, especially if you're like a lower round pick that help me on this round with this guy, help me out, we'll scratch your back on the other contract type stuff. So that's why I chose a bigger agent. But you do lose something in that as far as bigger agency means like they have more people to appease, I guess, So your attention's not as great, especially if you're not a top round pick or anything like that. But I went with them. So you have to find your own agent if you want to be represented. You don't have to have an agent, but it's strongly recommended. There is a bucking trend as far as a couple other players like Sherman. Richard Sherman and I think Bobby Wagner got their own. Lamar Jackson has his own representation. He's representing himself.
Okay.
So there's definitely a trend, but right now it doesn't. I think the reason why they're negotiating themselves, especially if you're like a rookie, like it's all slotted now, so you don't really need an agent. As far as you might need it for like other things, like maybe social media or getting other things as social media or shoe deals and stuff like that. But as far as signing stuff as a rookie, you don't really need an agent, honestly.
So if they give you a contract, and it's not a page long, right? It's probably like this thick.
It's a couple thick, yeah. It's a couple thick, and they have all these clauses in there, like I couldn't snowboard, ski board, ride a motorcycle, stuff like that.
Well, they wouldn't. That was back then. I'm pretty sure it's worse now.
For sure,
the guys getting in trouble doing stupid stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if social media now too. So if you could probably even get caught, I think before, if you got hurt as a result of being on those things, it's avoiding your contract. But Nowadays, you probably get caught doing those things they'll probably be avoiding your contract.
So how do you process that contract? Did you just give it to your agent saying, "Hey, agent, what do you think?" And he says, "Yeah, sign
For the
here,
most
sign
part,
here."
yeah. For the most part, yeah.
So unless you're like you went to law school and you're comfortable sitting there with the glasses, like, all right, one page by one. Oh, this means this. Let's amend.
It's all personality type. Like my personality type's not that type to do that. And that's why I'm paying the agent 3%. But other people, some people will do that.
Gotcha.
And probably me now, I probably do that as a 45-year-old person. A 45-year-old person.
Was there room there to negotiate back then, even a little bit about, hey, can we work with this or blah, 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 blah?
Maybe in signing bonus or maybe years. Probably the two biggest things, but probably a little bit more of a signing bonus.
Gotcha.
If anything.
And NFL contracts then, they weren't guaranteed, correct? Or they still aren't, I believe.
They are getting more guaranteed, fully guaranteed, but not rookie contracts. I want to say like second contracts. And I want to say that's more or less of like what takes so long with these deals is they want more full guaranteed money.
Gotcha.
Or they want shorter years. Either I think that's probably the biggest negotiating thing is like if you want guaranteed money, the team probably wants more years out of you, or vice or something like that. And then I think that's where the big the big friction is at.
It's like the LeBron James thing. I'll sign a 1-and-1. I'll give you 1 year with an option for another. But if you're at his level, you can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
They're just going to pay you.
Exactly.
So once you get through all the contracting thing, what's life like just starting your first season, preseason at least, through the Arizona Cardinals in terms of how college was a big difference from high school, just in terms of the work ethic and or what you have to see. How did the NFL step it up beyond that?
The fishbowl just gets smaller and smaller, man, with the talent level, dude. It's like, I was pretty decent in Pac-10 and Pac-12, but man, it's a whole other animal out there as far as the NFL, dude. Like, I was talking to one of my buddies about just tiers of like he was talking about how he went to a camp. He went to play. His coach, our high school coach, said, "Hey, if you want to play, high school ball, you need to go down here to this camp and see if this is your future or whatnot." And he said he was severely humbled as far as that. And another buddy of mine, same thing, is like, yes, and like sports, especially NFL or just sports in general, definitely humble you. So I was thinking of John Runyon. He was an offensive tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles at the time. That he just, if I'll be honest, dude, like I was his bitch, dude. If I'll be honest, dude, like John Runyon, like no problem. Whatever he wanted, dude. But then on the next level, Michael Strahan, like Michael Strahan's bitch. Like, oh, that's how much better Michael Strahan is. That's how much better a Hall of Famer is to me. It's crazy how the tiers are as far as even within like, the football, creme de creme, it's still deeper levels, as far as what you're going up against and all that stuff.
Is it just raw natural talent? Like the guy's 5 inches taller than me, or he's just naturally 30 pounds heavier? Or is it literally the guys who are at the top are just the way that they train, the way that their mindset is, it's on a different level that either I don't want to get to or I can't get to?
It's a mixture. I mean, some raw natural talent, obviously, like raw strength, is definitely helps, but you can get it any other way. You can be a smart player. Smart players that know their limitations, know they have to be smarter. Fast players. I mean, it's a lot easier when you have that natural talent, but it doesn't get you all the way. It doesn't get you. Natural talent doesn't get you, to 10 years. It doesn't get you to natural talent. Like if you're just like one of the top athletes and this and that, it'll get you, I'd say 5 years if you are not just complete waste of space,
Gotcha.
But I mean, you're decent, you're starting, they'll probably get you 5-6 years. But if you want to get like 10, 12 years and, all that stuff, you have to be smarter. You have to take care of your body better. You have to stretch. You have to be more serious. It's definitely professional, man. It's like, that's the biggest difference between, like, I'd say between college football and NFL football. It's professional. Like, it's legit professional. Same way as like, I don't know, say you're like a teacher's assistant or something like that, or well, just professional. Just you're buttoned up. You take it's your job. So you definitely have to look at it that aspect if you plan on lasting that long. It's still a game. Don't get me wrong, but it's a job as far as
It's like this puts food on my family's table.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can go out and have a good time and party and all that stuff, but you better be able to perform.
Gotcha.
You better do your job, and if you can do it, good for you. If you can't, you got to figure out how you can, like make this thing last because you're making good money.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you got to tell people you guys are making some good money.
For real.
So for your typical fan that just cares about the team winning, if the team's not winning, they, like typical fans, they'll blame a player or they'll blame the coach.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's a lot more complicated than just simply that guy didn't do his job or whatnot. Like that game you're telling where the Emmitt Smith ran down your guys' throats for 200 plus yards and they put up a 50 spot on you.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, the Cowboys at the time, I mean, I'm not a Cowboy fan, so I shouldn't say this, but I guess they were kind of good.
They're all right.
They're all right. That's part of the reason there too. But talk about what goes on behind the scenes in the team. Like, if the team is not performing well, is it usually because there's a morale issue, maybe from either management or the coaching staff, or maybe there's rumors that, hey, we're going to just, blow this whole team up next year, and everybody's like, well, screw it? Or does it come down to maybe guys just aren't on the same page? Like, we know our jobs, but we're not looking out for each other on the field. How do you, in your experience, what has been like the biggest thing with that?
When I was playing, I was with the Cardinals. The Cardinals the Cardinals have never really been known as a great team, but they were like a dog shit team. When I was playing with them.
This is before they got the new stadium.
It was before they got the new stadium.
Sun Devil Stadium.
Sun Devil Stadium. So they were like, we were terrible. I'm just going to say we were terrible. So I would say a lot of it in that locker room was more culture. I want to say, as far as like, I want to say we were mathematically eliminated, like, I think before our bye week one year or some shit like that. Something crazy. We got math. So as far as, it could be a mixture of things. It could be coaching, like coaches aren't connecting with the players. That's a big one. Players not connecting with each other. Like, I want to say, like, I think the reason like why Buffalo is good is the way they are, especially like back then. I was watching something on when Buffalo went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row.
Yeah.
They say, well, there's nothing to do because they would always have, Jim Kelly would always have people over and, not party, but just have a good time, hang out and all that stuff. And I think that's huge for camaraderie reasons because there's nothing to do in Buffalo.
I never would have thought about that. That makes, what else do you do in Buffalo when there's just snow and there's no real nightlife? Well, let's all hang out together.
They all hang out together, get to know each other. And I think I know that transfers over to you're on the field when, so-and-so that you're hanging out with, good time, you have this relationship with and this bond with that he's busting his butt for you. So you have to do the same. So it's at a level of accountability. I want to say accountability is huge. Coaching, like I said, coach has to know what he's doing, obviously. And then you have to make sure you're picking the right players that have that right mentality. Some players, it's cool. Like, they're just there for the paycheck. They're just mercenaries, and that's fine. Like, feed your family, do whatever you need to do. Then there's some people that just live, breathe, eat football, That's what I like about our current 49ers with John Lynch. Like, he gets guys that live, breathe, eat, love football. Like, money is just the result of playing well or of what they love. But that's why I like where we're at right now with the Niners.
Well, full disclosure, I'm a Raider fan.
I'll just
put that out there.
Okay.
Okay. all I have circled on my calendar is the January 1st or 2nd game. As long as the Raiders win that game against the Niners, then I don't care the fact that they stink it up this year with all the games that they've lost.
McDaniel's probably got another year. He's got another year to reset. Probably. I don't know if you guys will keep Carr or not, but.
See, that's one thing with that. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on today in the NFL. McDaniels is that guy that when he's under Bill Belichick, and a combination with having Tom Brady, it's like he looks like the genius. Like that O coordinator with that quarterback and that head coach. Like, this guy is going to get a job anywhere. And he gets a job with Denver and just completely falls flat on his face. Yeah. Which tells me that, okay, he's a great O coordinator, but can he manage a group of guys? And he probably couldn't. And it lasted 1 year, and he said, screw this, I'm going back to, coach with Belichick. Does that for a couple of years, wins, one or two more rings or something like that? And then now
1 or 5,
something like that. Yeah, exactly. Comes to the Raiders, and that's the thing I'm thinking of. It's the same thing. Like, okay, I know you can call plays, you can see the field that way, but can you lead a group of guys? Did you learn that lesson through Belichick? Or are you going to bring the Belichick way, which works for Bill Belichick, doesn't mean it works for everybody else? And how's that whole dynamic going to look? And I watch the Raiders sometimes, and I'm like, okay, same quarterback, new receivers, same running back, mostly a lot of the guys in the same place. The defense needs a lot of work. But your side of the ball, man. But what's going on here? And I'm just looking at his body language. I'm like, I don't see him connecting with the guys the way that kind of like that coach that everybody fights for does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Belichick's like this, but you can tell guys fight for him whether they're scared of him or whether they're just like, hey, it's the Belichick way, I gotta do. I don't know it.
Yeah.
But do you ever look at games nowadays and can you see on the field like the coaches and the players' body language? Like I can tell exactly why they are where they are.
I can tell. The best way to tell a team and if they're connecting with the coach is if they're getting their ass kicked. Honestly, in my opinion, as far as like how are they still trying to play as if they're trying to like there's a shot at winning this game still. Like I think is probably a bit like I want to say with Shanahan when he first got here, our record was terrible like the 0-9ers, but we were fighting for every game. Some games were blowouts, but we were still, you know, playing with heart and all that other stuff. Some games, you know, you'll see it in other teams where they're getting blown out. They're down by, 17 points, and they're already shutting up shop. So I think that's a huge one. I do see it in body language. I mean, I don't see it as much as far as like, depending, you have to see like as far as the camera has to show it.
Yeah.
Like I want to say, like in Arizona, Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, their body language is is really wonky. I don't know if it's really, you know, if there's anything as far as behind that, but Kyler gives terrible body language as far as like, you know, if he's listening as coach. But yeah, I definitely see that though, as far as if a team is listening to the coach, like you'll see an eye roll or you'll see something like that or stuff like that. But yeah, I guess you can see that. Yeah.
Could it really be as bad as maybe one or two bad apples in the team that just kind of don't care anymore that could bring down the rest of the team and can overpower the coach's influence? Do you ever see that happen? Like, okay, yeah, I want to, you know, the coaches give me rah, 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 but the guy who's actually the leader of the team is like, you know, he's 1 foot out the door.
If the player's really good, particularly, yeah, it could be it's super poison. Like if you're like the best player in the team, he has a bad attitude, like, because you're going to have young, impressionable people in that receiver room or that DB room or that whatever room he's in. Like he's the alpha in that room, so they're just gonna kind of follow unless you have another dog in that room, that'll compete. But for the most part, like it's very rare that you have like, you know, aside from the Niners, but you know, have like all stars and all, you know, every different room. So yeah, if he's a bad attitude or anything like that, yeah, it's definitely gonna trickle out to the other team. It's gonna be some sort of tension or something like that.
Gotcha.
You know,
do you see it's like when you're talking about a team getting blown out? Do you see on the field where guys just they aren't making the tackle because they're like, why bother? We're getting our ass kicked.
Business decisions. I see business decisions for sure. Yeah. I see all kind of business decisions if you're getting blown out, and that's another indicators. Like, is this guy making business decisions because he wants to make sure he's keep collecting his checks, and there's really no point in this game, or is this guy busting his hump, just trying to make a play and put some good tape out.
Gotcha. It's like we were talking about earlier. It's like the game within the game. It's like people see the score at the end of the day if you're a casual fan, but when you're in there, it's all these guys. You know, some of them have their own agendas, and if you guys aren't all on the same page of why we're actually doing this, then you're right. That one bad apple can completely ruin the whole team.
Oh, totally.
If you chose to,
for sure.
You would think GMs would see that. It's like, yeah, this guy has got all the talent in the world, but man, I mean, what he did on this team and the Vikings and the Eagles, I mean, it's this pattern here. Why bring that here? And they really juggle like...
It's that pressure from the fans, dude. It's the fan pressure, bro. Like, I mean, they were creaming for Antonio Brown to get signed for the Niners. It was like, no way, bro. Like, you just have to... I think you have to be stuck in your... Not stuck in your ways, but you have to stick to your... if this is a bad decision, believe in yourself, because some folks, I believe a lot of GMs fold to like the fan, because it's their job too, right? Like,
well, that's the thing is the GM reports to the owner, and if you think about it, if you're the owner, are your fans not going to show up if you have a bad team? Maybe some of them won't, but a lot of them are still going to pay money to go see the game because if nothing else, they're going to see the other teams that come.
Yeah, right.
So are you really losing money if you don't listen to the fans? I know it sounds horrible for all the football fans out there, but it's like, hey, I know you want this guy here, but he's a problem and he costs too much. So we're going to get two of these guys over here. They're going to be better for the team. Trust us. They're going to be good.
Yeah.
And then you get a team like the Baltimore Ravens in 2000 that had Trent Dilfer as a quarterback, and they win the Super Bowl because the defense is so good and so locked in. You're like, well, half of these guys weren't the biggest names in the league until after.
Yeah, until after, for real.
Exactly. But yeah, that's why I always think, like, if you're a GM, are you really catering to the fans, or are you really just like you got your blinders on?
I think some do and some don't. I think that they listen definitely more to the owner. It depends on what the owner says. If Depends on, you know, how hot-handed they are or how stable they are. But
like Jerry Jones now, who's
Jones.
into everything for the Cowboys. Like literally, he's doing interviews for the team. Like, you're the owner, man. That's not your job. Like
Jerry said, I put how many billions in this, but I'm gonna do whatever I want in this thing.
Yeah, like okay, you would think you would get the message. Okay, this is the point where you step back and let the GM and the coach take over. But if you want to get into everything,
it's personality, man, that's what makes people just so fascinating, man. Just whatever walk of life, whatever it is, people are just still people at the end of the day, man. They either have their egos or they're feeding something that happened to them when they were younger, or just trying to prove themselves, or whatever it is. That's why I like sociology. That's why I studied it at UW. Just finding people just fascinating in general, dude. Just how they tick.
Jeez.
You know,
I want to ask you how you moved on from the NFL, but before I forget, because this was important too, let's talk about finances in the league.
Okay.
Because this is a big topic that is coming to light a lot more now, especially in the NBA. I think Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson have their own podcast specifically to address the issue with a lot of the NBA guys who, what are you really told when you come to the league about, hey, you went from making like nothing in college to now here's this big payday, probably more money than you'd ever seen in your life at that point. Am I correct? Yeah,
for sure.
And then so are you even told, hey, this is how you manage it? Or they just said, here's a check and hopefully you don't blow it all in Vegas?
Same thing as far as what I was saying with the getting recruited by agents. You get recruited by other tertiary people like financial advisors. You get recruited by financial advisors and not so much CPAs or anything like that, but financial advisor is another big one. And in general, nobody really tells you anything as far as, like, if you don't hire a financial advisor or anything like that, you're not going to learn anything as far as educational wise. But even when you do get a financial advisor, you're kind of just taking their word on what the right decision is for you. And I had a good financial advisor, but in general, I mean, a lot of times it could be a family relative. It could be, you have to be, you know, smart about that, because there's also that, like I said, the human aspect as far as the person that you grew up with that is in financing and they studied that, you know, so you probably trust them or they won't do you bad because you know them, you grew up with them. So sometimes they end up doing you the worst, right? Yeah. Or just some person that you don't know, sounds you talked a good game as far as like what he's going to do with your money. And all of a sudden you're like, you know, you double check on it and you're like, oh, what happened to all this money? And that's another thing. Like, you don't, even if when you think you do have a financial advisor, you think a lot of times people, in my opinion, I think people think that, you know, that's it. You know, I don't have to worry about my money because I got a financial advisor, but they don't stay on their financial advisor and educate themselves enough to, you know, find out, like, eventually you want to be your own financial advisor, I would think. Yeah. You know, you don't want to depend on, so I think they don't teach, so unless you went to school specifically for business to get your MBA or anything like that, like, no, I think that's a huge hole in just, not just professional sports, but just life in general, dude. Like, you don't really learn much about taxes in high school. You don't learn about compound interest unless you're in like advanced math or something like that. Yeah, you don't learn none of that. You don't learn any of it, right? So, I mean, it's probably a reason why I won't get into why they don't teach us that, but.
So, yeah, I get where you're coming from there.
But, I mean, just the fact that there's no just general education on just how to, you used to be able to budget your book and all, but you don't really know about how to make money until you make money, and you have to you have the time to find that out, and it's crazy how you don't really know that until it's like almost gone, or you know, or you get mad, it's like, man, I could have made way more money if I had learned this earlier. So
that's a way to do it. Mm-hmm. Did
I answer your question ish?
Very good. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's because the idea is that most people don't know that you have to go out and seek this out on your own. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of curious to think of the people that you played with. Mm-hmm. Did you see the guys that just took the paycheck and then right away they came back with a Lambo, or they came back with all the gold rings or something like that, and you're like, man, that's
yeah. They're more first round picks, so they could do that. I want to say first round. They had the first round pick money and whatnot, but not crazy though. Like nothing like Lambos and like that. I think it depends on what city you're in as well.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
I'm in Phoenix, so I mean, you're gonna stick out like a sore thumb if you have a Lambo.
I guess.
But if you're out like in Miami or something like that, or LA or something like that, or I don't think we just had the personality types for that out in Arizona. But I mean, it's definitely out there, especially when you get that second contract. Like, That's really more the big payday when you see people like if they splurge, they get that second contract typically.
So when you're signing these contracts now, do you sign them with the idea thinking, okay, I probably got about 3 or 4 years left in the league, or do you sign them thinking, hey, this is the big number. Okay, I got to do 6 years. Like, how do you, when you're going through it, how do you think long term?
For me, I was just signing my rookie contract, but I would say there's a lot of factors involved. There's usage. NFL is weird because they're paying you for what you've done on your second contract, your previous, because you kind of proved yourself, but they're also, I think, figuring out a way like to pay for your. They're trying. I want to say teams are trying to pay for you as much as what you can for you've done, and try as least as possible what you can do in the future. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, like as far as with the salary cap, it's always going up. So they try to squeeze you within so you can make the so you fit within the salary cap. But I mean, you take a guy like you sign a nice fat contract now, but 3 years down the road, it's like if they start balling, if they ball again, like they're kind of stuck in that contract. They can renegotiate depending on the team, but they can get more out of, like I want to say, for example, Dre Greenlaw. He's balling right now for the 49ers. Number 57 for the 49ers linebacker. He just signed a contract. It's a good deal for him, but he's probably going to be playing at a pro. He's playing at a Pro Bowl level right now, if not all pro level right now. So I think he signed like a 2-year deal. So if it was a 3-year deal, he might be like, kind of, man, I wish I would have waited a little bit longer. 2-year deal's not too bad, but it's just it's a balancing act. Like, you want to get as much as you can for what you're worth, but you also want to, pay for that, and get paid down the road as well. Like you're worth it. You don't want to get laughed at. You want your agent to get laughed. Agent doesn't want to get laughed at. Like, that was a terrible deal. What are you doing? So
I believe it. And just to clarify, so when you guys get paid, you get paid a game check for the week, correct?
Yes.
And that's only when you're playing.
Only when you're playing.
So 6 or 4 months out the year, you're not getting anything.
Exactly.
Correct?
Exactly.
So with that being said, do you think about, okay, I need to put X amount of money away per paycheck because, in the months of February, March, April, I kind of have to just work with what I got. Do you think about that way?
Honestly, my rookie year, no. Sophomore and my 3rd year, yes. But yeah, for sure. Like I was really looking forward to camp that year. After my rookie year.
I believe it. That's just something I think people don't realize. They see people making these crazy millions of dollars. Like, yeah, they're making a lot of money. First of all, that's before Uncle Sam takes his cut.
Yeah.
And second of all, they're getting paid during the season or the preseason. Once the season's over, that's the checks are cut off until it starts up again.
Yeah, you have to recycle your thinking. Like, okay, yeah, you have to think ahead of time, definitely, for sure.
And so what is your mentality during the off season then? Is it just pretty much hit the weight room? Do you have anxiety about, hey, am I going to get that call that I'm being traded to Detroit or something like that? How do you deal with it with typical off season?
You take a break, then you hit the gym, hang out a little bit, decompress a little bit. Each person is different. Some people hit the film and all that stuff, and like I said, if I'll be honest, I was probably the most professional athlete. If I'll be honest. But it all depends. Just some people do philanthropy, stuff like that in the off season. Some people travel. I did a lot of traveling, and yeah, just trying to figure out. Like I said, I was 21, 22.
Way too.
Yeah.
And there was so how many total years with Arizona?
2 years with Arizona, and then a year with the Texans.
And that was the expansion draft, correct?
That was the expansion draft.
So how does that work? Did they already tell you, hey, you're in this pool of players that they might pick? So you're already ready in case you got that call. Hey,
exactly. Yeah. So I got a call from the coach. It's like, hey, we're gonna leave you eligible for this expansion draft. I think we have a pretty good opportunity for you. And then draft night came up, or expansion draft day came up, and I got drafted, which is crazy.
You're like, hey, I got drafted again.
Exactly.
So how was the different experience between starting from the Cardinals or getting drafted by the Cardinals, and now you're drafted for an expansion team where everybody's brand spanking new? How was that first year at Houston?
Houston was different because Houston had the Oilers right before.
The Oilers that went to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And
so they came out. So they were stoked to have another football team. So they were really, the city was really, really open and welcoming for sure. So that was awesome to see. It was different because also Houston Texans or Houston Oilers, they were like they're a winning program when they were here. So got a lot more plugs as far as like just, signing things or just random signings for showing up to car dealerships and stuff like that, and just opportunities like that. Yes,
the
it's
whole
Texas,
city
Houston,
came in
Texas, so it's different. The football is definitely different in Texas. So had a lot more autograph signings and like that. And like I said, that's a 6th-round pick, and it started maybe like 8 games with the Cardinals, but so nothing crazy.
Right.
But still, got offers like that. So that was pretty interesting to see as far as just a different city, how different cities operate as far as how much love they give to the team and whatnot. And like I said, they were really stoked to see have the Texans there.
And it was 1 year there, correct?
It was 1 year there, yes.
So when you got out of your contract with Houston, how were you shopping for the other teams? Like, how does that work when you're a free agent? Do you have to go basically put your resume out to other teams? Do they just call you and see your name on the list? How does that work?
For the most part, I want to say with my experience levels, how much time I got on the field, I would say I was sending my contract out or sending my resume out to them. Agent calls around. That's another why you want to have a good agent. They can get you into camps. You want to just keep, for the most part, you want to keep as much tape, fresh tape as you can as possible. So that's why I went to, various camps, or I went to NFL Europe even. That was my idea when I went to play in Canadian football, was to, just as long as you have some kind of tape of saying like what you can still move around and see how you can play. And then they just give you a call either as a camp body, and then you prove yourself in that camp. And either they cut you or keep you in mind or stuff like that. Like sometimes even if you get cut, like there's players I see with the Niners particularly, they'll cut like 3 or 4 times. We'll bring them back because it's injuries or just things happen. So
yeah, like they already know you. They're like, well, in case somebody gets injured, we know what you can do.
Know knows the playbook and this and that, and know we can get out of them as far as that stuff. So yeah, so you always want to stay in shape, definitely. Like even during the season, if you do get cut, you're staying in shape as if you're playing with that mentality. Like the phone call can happen anytime.
Well, that's one thing I like about the NBA, that they have that D League or the G League, whatever it's called now.
D and G League,
G League. Yeah. Like it's a place where if you're just not living up to what they need you for on the pro court, you can go down to the leagues and you can get more experience there. And I like that about NFL Europe when they had it, and even the CFL.
Yeah.
Since there's no NFL Europe anymore, is there really a place for guys to go who are like, hey, I need some more time on the field, but there's just nowhere,
CFL right now, and then they have this, the USFL's kicking up. I think that's whoever won the Rock's doing. I think XFL, USFL. I want to say that those two are going to be a farm feeding system, I would say, or alternative. Because a lot of times it's just that too. Was the thinking behind NFL Europe is it's just so much. Like you have starters and it's hard to make the team, but I mean you have to be already good. But if you're like, you can't be just like in college where, I mean I guess you can, but it's harder. Like if you just don't have the reps, especially quarterback.
Oh yeah.
Quarterback, you just need the reps to see the defense, you see the speed and get used to the speed. But if you're not on the field, like it's hard to get those reps. So that's all the whole thinking behind the NFL Europe was, and I think that's probably the thinking behind the USFL and the XFL in this year.
I don't know why they got rid of the NFL Europe. Do you know why? I never looked into why.
Probably cost, because you're flying teams out there, and
I guess it makes sense.
Football's an expensive sport as far as equipment, all that stuff too, and all that stuff. So
that makes sense.
And plus, I mean, the fans were showing up, but I don't think they really had they didn't have a big TV contract, or if they did, the times were all crazy. And I think you have to really, really love football if you want to watch NFL Europe in the United States, like early in the morning or something like that. So
it was, I remember the games would be on Fox every now and then. I'm like, oh, this is a Europe League. Oh, the Berlin Thunder or whatever it was.
Thunder, yeah.
What was do you have like that one memorable game where like your best game in the pros, and who was it against?
Best game in the pros, I want to say against Atlanta Falcons. I actually got a sack that game, made some good tackles. Actually, I like to think I got them the new stadium because, in a roundabout way, because I want to say they were driving on us, and then I got a sack, got them out of field goal range or something like that, and they missed a field goal. As a result, we won the game, and then as a result, there was like actual vote for like if they wanted the stadium. I want to say that following week or something like that, and the vote went through. I say because the Cardinals won, so I have to take that.
That because the last game the Falcons played was a loss, therefore we need a new stadium. That's a way to put it.
Exactly. The guy, and I got the sack that caused him the loss. So
That's awesome. Did you keep the ball?
I did. So you're welcome. You're welcome, Phoenix.
All the Falcons fans. There we go. Man, that's actually pretty funny to say that you were the reason that they got
the Phoenix did, right? Like Phoenix got their new stadium.
That's awesome, man. Oh wait, I think I meant Atlanta got the new stadium.
I made a sack in Atlanta. I played Atlanta.
Okay, not Atlanta getting the new stadium. Phoenix getting the new stadium.
Yeah, Phoenix getting the new stadium.
We'll correct that. I thought you meant the Falcons. They always get new stadiums out there for whatever reason. Here's another big topic that comes up a lot. It's the issue of health in the league. Mm-hmm. Like obviously, when you're playing, they want you like on top of your game. They'll whatever medicines that you need or whatever therapy you need. But how is it like when they're trying to get you on the field? Is it like they're just trying to patch me up to get out there and play, but really, hey, this knee isn't, or do you even say anything because you're like, hey, I kind of want to play. Probably shouldn't say that this knee ain't what it should be.
It's different. I want to say back then, it's kind of you're expected to play. Not so much just pressure from the team, but just pressure from yourself as well. Particularly with the head stuff. Like with the knee stuff, there can be situations where, they can push you out there and before you're ready, and doc says you're good and everybody says you're good, but you just don't think so. And it's weird because I want to say, especially with knee injuries, particularly if you're coming off one, like if you're coming off a surgery, like a lot of it's just getting your confidence back as far as what that knee can do. So you hear your doc saying it's right and hearing everybody saying you're fine, but just in your head, like then you start thinking like, am I tripping? Is it because my confidence isn't there? I've never hurt myself, so I wouldn't know that realm. But I can see, there is pressure. I want to say more so, probably more so in college, not just at UW, but just all over the place, because the head coach has like your life in his hands, because he can take your scholarship, he can sit you on the bench, he can badmouth you to the next level. So
yeah, you're right.
So because coach, the first person they talk to is, oh, what's he like? Is well, he's not gonna. I mean, he's not gonna play hard if he's just a little dinged up, or he might say, oh, he'll play through anything. That type deal. As far as with coaches, like I said, I didn't experience anything like that, and I don't think I really know of it at my school, but I just know that it's around there. But that's definitely a possibility. But in the pros, it all depends, because that's also a financial investment. It depends how much money they're invested in and how good the team's doing and all that stuff. And the pressure around is also just as far as involved in like the locker room and just the culture there, and how bad that he needed, and how like, are you hurt or you're injured, pretty much kind of type deal.
Well, you brought a big thing up when you talk about the head injuries and how many guys were like, yeah, I got dinged in the head, but it's fine, I can go out there. Mm-hmm. And the big thing in your guys' day was the whole CTE issue. Mm-hmm. This is what happened when Junior Seau, who else was it? Aaron Hernandez, all of these guys that after they pass on, they do these scans of their brains like, holy shit, that this guy, it was really messed up in there.
Fucking scrambled eggs for brains for sure. Yeah,
exactly. Like, was that even something that was even talked about, even sort of hush-hush? Nothing at all. They were like, yeah, they're fine.
I mean, it's just, I think that's more of a cultural thing, as more as, rub dirt on it. And, if you're throwing up because you got hit hard, I want to say they're concerned about you. But I don't think the research is there as far as, like, what a concussion technically is. Because I want to say I did some testing for the NFLPA a while back, a couple months ago, about a year or so ago, and they're just kind of talking about like a concussion technically is if you just get your bell rung typically, like if you see stars or if you just kind of like whatever. I was like, well, yeah, I see stars all the time, like in college, like in practice, but then think of it to report or anything like that. So I think a lot of part that was just education on what that was doing. I don't know as far as higher up, as far as the conspiracy theory is, as far as were they trying to research all that and were they keeping those papers hush-hush? I don't know about all that, but I just know it's a cultural thing. High school, college, pros, like, unless you got knocked out cold, I mean, you're going back in for the most part, because that's just part of like, tough guy and tough image, right?
Well, even now, do they still do testing for you, even though you haven't played in a while, to say, hey, we just want to check up on you?
They did test, I want to say 2 months ago.
Very recent, okay.
Very recent, well, but I got actually a good bill of health, because actually it was like part of like is part of the NFL claims as far as that. So I got a call from my lawyer like, good news, bad news. Like, good news, you're good. They seem to think that you're as cool, but bad news, you're not going to get anything. It's kind of bittersweet. Like, okay, I get to know that I'm cool for right now.
Right.
So, but
what is that testing like? Is it just an MRI scan, or do you have to fill out a bunch of forms to see if you can write?
I won't say it's more psychological and physical stuff. I didn't take any MRI things because I've only had one diagnosed concussion. That was like in high school. So
gotcha. Okay.
I've been very fortunate. Like as far as like unofficial concussions, probably a lot more, but I generally didn't hit with my head all that often. I tried not to. I was always taller. So
who did it affect more? You would think it would affect running backs, wide receivers, maybe linebackers because they're doing a lot of hard hitting.
Yeah.
Who else was typically the ones that
I'd say those positions, probably quarterbacks too.
Quarterback, yeah.
But there's so many rules around a quarterback these days that it's hard to hit them that hard.
Did you see that game in Tampa Bay earlier this year? It was some crazy pass, roughing the quarterback, and he barely touched the quarterback. Became this big controversy. It's like, that's not roughing the passer, not even close, but they called it.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are really on that flag for that one.
Yeah.
It's like, this is getting ridiculous.
For sure.
Like,
I think I think it's more like lawyer talk, dude. Make sure like, hey, we're doing something about this, so it can't come back later. Yeah. Plus, I think they always do that. They're always going hard on the rules early in the year. And then dial it back to see if, just to see if there's with the competition or with ratings pretty much, I would think.
Yeah.
I would think so.
Do you think that a lot of the refs have the pressure sometimes? Like, it's kind of hemming and hawing, but I got to make the decision, so it's better safe to just throw the flag out and say I did it. That way no one can ever say, why didn't you call that?
I think so. I think so, especially particularly with safety. I want to say they're definitely with safety. They want to pull the trigger on that one faster because there's no... The gray line's getting thinner. I think it's got to be more black and white with the safety issue. Other rules and other things like that, I don't think so. I don't know, but
gotcha.
But particularly with health, though, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a topic that's still going to be out there, and unfortunately, hopefully, we don't have any more stories like Junior Seau, one of the greatest linebackers ever, and then how he ended everything. Yeah, and then I think he wrote a note too, right, saying this is what happened.
That's what he wanted to. He wanted that's why he shot himself in the chest and all that stuff. Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy to think that it's something to really think about. Now, hopefully that the NFL is on the right page with all the guys now to say, hey, we're going to try and be on top of it as best we can. But it's like, you can't really avoid it. It's a contact sport. I mean, unless you want to go play flag football, and I don't know if you're going to get a lot of ratings for that one.
Yeah,
but
it's a tough place to be in, definitely, for sure. I think they're making rules. It's crazy how the human body or just the athlete adjusts, though. Like nowadays, could be before, it's like DBs, I can't hit anybody. Like, this going to be, I'm going to hurt myself, or like they're going to be ducking their heads. It's going to be impossible. You still see hard hits.
Yeah.
Hard legal hits, square to the chest, head outside, all that other things. So it's crazy how they adjust. It seemed like it'd be impossible, but, there are some BS calls, and they're kind of soft. But for the most part, you still see hard hits out there, and but still legal.
Do you think the game feels faster now than it was back when you were playing?
I think so. Just the level, just how much research and data is available to players nowadays. Like, I want to say, especially like receiver specialists, receivers, DBs. Like, before you have, you didn't really see anybody a little training, but now you see DBs putting out, workout tapes on just doing their cuts and stuff like that. Just, trying to floss and try to get the social media up, and then you see another DB trying to better that, or receiver doing a one-handed catch, in practice, and so they want to try that and one up them. So I think the level is definitely getting better. I think football in general is just getting better as far as level of athlete and just a level of play. Plus, they play 7-on-7 year round now and all that other stuff.
Do they?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like high school kids, they'll play 7-on-7 year round. Like, you'll give scholarships out on stuff because of 7-on-7 these days. Jeez, it's crazy.
Technology now, you can go down to the minute thing about how someone's designed. Oh, you're better at this. Jeez,
exactly right. Man.
Yeah, I know. So, when you got out of the league, what was it that made you say, "Hey, it's time to hang it up"? Was it just your body was telling you, "Hey, it's time"? Was it teams weren't calling you?
A little bit of A, a little bit of B. Yeah, for sure. Getting cut from a Canadian football team is definitely an eye opener as well. NFL career is probably getting cut from Canadian football teams. No knock on Canadian football, but is what it is.
Yeah.
And then also my body started to talk back to me, like my shoulders and stuff like that. Or just recovery took a little longer than it did. And then it's like Also, how long more did I want to be doing this for as far as this grind? Because like I say, ultimately I want to get back to the NFL, but that window was getting closer. It was getting smaller and smaller. So
Right.
so
Total between Europe, States, how many years?
I want to say 7.
7 years. Okay, so still 7 years playing pro football, man.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Definitely no. Got it out of my system, that's for sure.
So when you realized you were done, how did you process what the next step was going to be? Did you already have an idea? Hey, I think I know what I want to do after this.
No, I had no clue what I want to do after that for a good year. Dude, I was installing windshields for a little bit, trying to figure things out. And then I was living in Canada for a while, but then moved back to the States. And then actually, it was pretty intimidating, honestly, just because I had no work experience as far as writing a resume down. Like, yeah, it looks impressive you play football, but what else can you do? And I do have, skills that transfer over, but I just didn't really know how to elaborate that or express that into, tangible soft skills. So I did go ahead and start working at Enterprise Rental Car, which is a great program as far as teaching you anything. I think it's pretty much a business school. Live on the scene business school. They teach you how to do your book sales, back end stuff, how to coach people up, how to be a manager, how to hire people, how to deal with difficult situations, how to deal with customer service. So I definitely got a lot of my skills for working at Enterprise Rental Car. They make you work hard, but the skills that you learn from there is second to none. And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Did you ever have maybe like an ego check? Like, did you say when you got out of the league, okay, I could probably do A, B, and C, and then realize, hey, I don't have the skills that I need to go do that? Or were you not thinking about that when you got out of the league?
I would say more along the lines of dollar amount what I was requesting for. First experience I showed on paper is like, okay, well,
I believe that.
I have to start a little bit more lower than the tone full. Hence, I have to, ask these people if they want this protection on the car now, and they have to say no or cuss me out or whatever it is. So that was definitely, humbling for sure. But I'm generally a humble person. So
do you think a lot of guys, when they get out of the league, and this is something that's not really talked about, do you think a lot of guys sort of fall into a depression or like, hey, this is all I knew was football, and now I'm, here in the regular world and I have no clue what to do or whatnot? Did you ever see that, feel that, or ever experience it on your own?
I would say it depends on like how high their aspirations were when they played and did they achieve that goal. And I think also, the thing I miss most is just, the camaraderie more than anything. As far as playing and all that stuff, and the controlled violence, I guess, too.
Yeah.
But it just all depends. I think if you had high aspirations, like you wanted to be, a Hall of Famer, you ended up being cut in like a year. Like, yeah, that's probably gonna be a depressing thing. Or if you got hurt or something like that. So there is a deal of depression there doing that, and then just I think it's more the uncertainty because you're banking on. I'll be honest. Like for me, I wasn't really thinking about playing football until there was an option.
Yeah.
But then once there's an option, I didn't think about playing with doing anything else. Like everything I did was probably gonna be through football. Like all these other things, these other, opening business, stuff like that. That was, having football being the main money generator and then investing other things. But now that I'm gonna start from square one, it's like, well, what do I do now? Like, so definitely, I think it's more of just a fear, not fear, but just uncertainty. I think it's more more than the depression thing. I think it does happen, I would say.
Yeah.
But I think it's more the uncertainty and why some more people like hanging on or want to hang on to playing because it's all it's what you know and all that stuff. So
it's like guys that go back in the military. They do their 4-year tour, but the camaraderie, like you were saying, they built up overseas working with all these guys and gals in whatever branch of service they were in. Then they come back to the real world here and are like, it's a different feeling. It's like, and you see him re-up in there.
Yeah.
Or in the NFL, like Brett Favre, one of the guys, like, I retired, but you know what? I'm going to come back because I can't get out of my system. This is who I am. This is what I do. And then they just keep on going. Or our buddy Tom Brady, that's I retired. Next day, you know what? I don't retire. I'm coming back.
For sure, man.
You love the game so much and you can't get out of it. And then you would, at some point, it's like, yeah, but you got to make room for the next wave of generation. Like now in Tom Brady's case, he's got more money. He knows what to deal with. He can be fine on his own right now.
Yeah, he'll be cool.
But for most guys getting out of the league, it's, you go from this lifestyle or the paychecks, whatever. Now you got to realize, hey, I got to go do something else.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
I mean, I do see a lot of guys doing like the analyst stuff where they do something football related where they get to talk about skills, like the podcast and whatnot.
Exactly.
It's a way to stay.
Use the resources for sure. Definitely.
Exactly. It's a way to stay in there or coach football, like coach high school football or something like that. Like, was that something that ever crossed your mind?
Coaching football takes too much time for me, bro. Like, I'm cool on that. Like, maybe on the side, as a position thing, but even then, that's hella time just dedicated, and I'd rather be doing something else, honestly.
Makes sense.
You know,
you do what you got to do there.
For sure.
It's just something that I bring up because a lot of people have asked about it. And it's been something that's been in the news lately too, where we're talking about, this, for whatever reason, maybe it's the holidays, whatever. It tends to come out at this time of year where it's like you hear about all these big names or just everyday people who are like, I have no idea what to do with myself, and then they just do something. They're like, well, kind of an extreme way to do it, but like what's going through your mind. So I was always curious to see how like NFL players deal with that once they get out of the limelight and whatnot. Or maybe it's really different if you're somebody who, like I said, is the star of the team. You were the one that had all the stats, and then now an ACL injury ruins your whole career. And now what do you do? Yeah, like it's almost cut short like right away compared to maybe if, like eventually like, all right, I kind of get out on my own.
Yeah, for sure. I want to say probably injury is probably a bigger one because it's like, well, that's always in the back of your head, like what could have been. So probably in the back of your head. But I think it depends on your foundation as far as, did you have a good solid financial foundation? Did you have a good, core of people around you? Was your whole personality football, or were you other things other than football, And people think that, football players just do dumb jocks, but they're very complicated people, dude. Like, I mean, there's guys that went to Harvard, there's guys that went to Stanford, guys that went to UW. There's there's a ton of people and there's bright dudes that are just more than just football players. Just happen to be really good at that one thing and pays good money. It just makes too much sense for me not to play. So they played football, but there's other things that you see it through. You see it through like their philanthropy stuff, like Eric Armstead. He's very involved in community, or you'll have the Walter Payton Award winners on stuff. Like, it's not just, if it was just football players just wanting to play football, like that, things like that wouldn't really happen to exist, especially nowadays with, players being more vocal as far as, social issues and stuff like that.
Here's a question for you. This always comes up with the parents, especially. Do you have a son?
I have a daughter.
Okay. But so let's say your child wanted to play football. What would you tell him? Yay, nay, stay away from it?
I'd probably tell him play, dude. It's a great sport. It's a great team building sport. Like, there's no other sport like it, man. As far as a bunch of individuals coming together to achieve a common goal. Like, there's no other sport. Like basketball, you can get away with having two good players and win the championship, and you're not really contributing anything to the team. But soccer, kind of the same thing. Baseball, solid pitcher and good batter and stuff like that. But football, you have to have that left tackle do his job, otherwise the quarterback might get killed. He might get hurt. As a D tackle, you have to make sure you get in the right assignment, otherwise, make the linebacker look bad. Yeah. Or safety has to be in the right position, or else the cornerback who had great position and did his job looks like a fool on TV. So yeah. So I mean, that's why I like football. So I mean, I probably wouldn't let him start until maybe 7th, 8th grade. High school, probably preferably, but there's other ways around that. I have them play maybe flag football to get the basic, to get it out of them.
Well, the main thing is you wouldn't be concerned about injuries early on, like,
man, it's life, dude.
Yeah, it is.
It's unfortunate if something unfortunate happens. Obviously, I don't want that to happen, but I mean, you can't live life like that, man. Just worrying about the what ifs.
That's true, man.
So
no, I definitely see it there. It's always something that when you ask parents about that, some parents are, I would never. You see how violent football, and some are like, no, it could be because of that reason there, because you get to build team bonding, and then some young boys especially need that more than others. Where like they need to be a part of that big unit,
totally,
to go work for the same goal. And yes, it's a physical contact sport. Yeah, but like you're saying, if you just live in fear about what if his ACL goes, or what if he gets this really bad concussion, it's like, well.
Now, if he's getting multiple concussions in like the same year, obviously I'm pulling him out. But ACLs and stuff like that, like, I mean, there's just another thing to overcome as far as he had an adversity early in his life that he can overcome. That's still a lesson in itself.
Yeah. So one of the guys that you played with on the Arizona Cardinals was Pat Tillman, and Pat Tillman is also, I forgot, he was Army, correct?
Army, yes. Army. He was a Ranger or something.
Ranger,
like that?
and it was. He enlisted in the Army in May of 2002 after September 11th. That people forget, like, my generation remembers it. I know your generation definitely does. That September 11th thing, that really
that happened.
Yeah,
that really happened.
It's but people forget like how kind of unified the country was at the time. So when you have somebody who's playing the NFL and could have had a basically not a cush job, but he was pretty much set. For him to basically say, screw that, I'm going to go and serve my country and leave all that on the field, that was
that's Pat Tillman, man. That's who he was as a person.
How was he in the locker room?
I mean, he's the type of guy that would give the ball up and have a military career. He's a cool dude, man. He's just down to earth dude. He's a Northern California guy. Dude, making NFL money would ride around a beach cruiser all day, everywhere, or be in a 1985 Jeep Cherokee. He had the money to buy nice vehicles, but he wasn't raised that way. He was just raised to be just a regular dude, didn't think better of anybody, didn't think any worse of anybody, just, judge you as a person, as your actions are, and then accordingly. But he's still cool, man. Like, type of dude that help up the opponents off the ground as far as, picking them up off after you tackle them, stuff like that.
Wow.
Solid dude, though, for sure.
Yeah, and it's just, to see, like, what I would call one of the true American heroes. I mean, obviously, you gave your life for your country. Yeah. There's no a greater honor than that, to make the ultimate sacrifice. And to also know that on the field and in the locker room that he was somebody that carried that same level of integrity with him.
Totally.
Somebody that you can go to and he's going to help you out, look out for you, you're his teammate. Not playing the game of I'm the best player at this ring, so you do what I say or get out of here.
Talk to all this. Like, there's sometimes you can get in the locker room, you get pretty catty. You can get kind of like, particularly with like position groups, you're just familiar with the position, so you can kind of like get not separated that way, but just more comfortable who you're talking to. With Pat, talk to everybody. Made it a point to talk to everybody, even specialists, special teams, punters, kickers, all this stuff. So definitely
interesting thing, man. And it's wish we had more of that. It's kind of one thing that you see a lot more with social media, unfortunately, is that there's a lot of more drama. I think there's a lot more of that maybe cattiness nowadays than there was back then.
Yeah.
You were in the locker rooms. I wasn't, so I don't know for sure, but having more integrity like this guy here is something that I think if we had a little more of that, I think we'd be in a much better position in terms of
like, for sure,
the country, other football team, just the way people interact with each other. So we're not always pointing fingers like you're right, I'm wrong, or vice versa. Like, nobody cares really. It's like, how are we working together to get to the end of to get to the goal that we need to get to?
Yeah. Not
your way or is all right or my way is all right.
Yeah, I think social media has affected how we have people don't want to have conversations. They just want to be right, They want their side, whatever it is, instead of like hearing, or just everything's black or white. It's not, you can't have a different opinion and be okay with that person. Like, completely different philosophical thinking, but just can't be like, okay, I hate you then because you don't have my agree. It seems like it's always that now, instead of just, okay, let's have a conversation. Why do you think that way? Explain to me why, and not, end up in fisticuffs for some reason,
I know. Yeah, exactly. I think the way, like what we're doing here, this whole interaction thing, what we saw in the pandemic was a lot of people were doing Zoom meetings, whatever, but it's just not the same thing unless I'm sitting here talking to you and we're having this conversation. Like, we're going almost 2 hours now, and a lot of things came up in this conversation that never would have thought of, which is the whole point, because we kind of build that relationship. Even if we totally disagreed on a point, it's not like get up and walk away. It's like, let's sit here and talk about it.
Exactly.
That's how we get through life.
Yeah.
It's figuring out what makes you tick. Here's what makes me tick. We can agree to disagree on certain things, but how can we take what we have in common and work together for whatever purpose we're actually trying to get to?
Exactly.
So I think you're going to start seeing more things like this. And this is why I like the long form thing, because you get a much better context over who somebody is and the message that they have compared to just a quick, 5-second snippet.
15-minute soundbite on a whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you get a very okay, that's not, I said that, but that's not the context I was saying it in. It's like, so if you can
gotta watch the thing, yeah, for sure. Had to be there.
I know, exactly. You had to be there. So what's the future hold for Jabari? Because you were doing real estate a little bit, correct?
Was doing real estate in Seattle, moved down here to be close to my parents. My ideals, get closer into tech. I was out here in San Francisco. Yeah. Work on, find some kind of like tech thing to just keep I like to just learn new things. So I like to push myself on things like that. So that being a tech world was completely foreign to me at the time or before or whatever, but now I'm starting to get the hang of it. So I'm liking that. You know, just better myself and, you know, find my happy place, dude. Pretty much.
Do you take any lessons away from the NFL specifically, or just that time in your life when you were in your 20s and just going through the natural progression of the things you learn when you're in your 20s?
Lessons from the NFL is probably more things I just learned because I'm in my 20s, and the football happened to be what I was doing in my 20s. But I think in general, just getting along with people, I think that's really helped as far as from my days in football. Just like, because a college locker, like a professional football locker room and a college locker room are very unique situations, because you have people from all over the world, all over the country, different spaces, different financial backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds and whatnot, and you can have some stone cold racists on your team, you know. But
I believe it, yeah.
But we're all, you know, in this same, probably same. I don't know if you did military or not, but
Not me.
it's kind of almost same like this military, you know, like you have all these, you know, different backgrounds. But I mean, on Sunday, that guy's the other person's the other team's the other color is the enemy. So let's put our own bullshit aside, so we can beat these motherfuckers, you know, pretty much, which is awesome, you know. So
That's, you know, the way just you saying that now, it makes people, well, I think it should make people understand that you could completely disagree with somebody's personal life, their political life, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But if you're on the same team, you know, hey, we're on this team because that's the enemy over there, with the football enemy or whatever enemy.
Yeah.
And that you can actually put that aside. A lot of people think that you can't, that there's almost like, I have to sabotage him because I don't agree with his position on whatever it is. Like, no, we're on the same team. I mean, I like the guy. I may not go out with them after work for a beer, but when we're on the same team, we put all that stuff aside and we just go with it.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to worry about him, or when we're on the field together, I know he's going to have my back on the football field, even if he dislikes me as the whatever racist person, whatever it is. It's that it changes there. Real life, you know, I think a lot of people are getting that misconstrued, is that because we can work together, if we did disagree with people, is how we can actually go forward. But if we just sit there and say, I disagree with you with this, so I'm going to sit here with my hands crossed and not do anything with you, well, now nobody's accomplishing anything.
Yeah, nobody's moving forward for sure.
Yeah.
My idea, I think, if I was president, I would have everybody from I would have one person from each different like background. I'd have like black dude, white dude, Mexican dude, gay dude, whatever, just all sit in like a room for like 2 hours and just talk, and like do that like maybe once a month or something like that. Like no cameras or nothing like that, no moderator, nothing like that. Just have some kind of like prompt, like Cards Against Humanity or something like that, and just
Cards Against Humanity.
You know, just interact with people and just see like. And I think in theory, I think that people would just see like, well, this guy's, you know, skin might be different, he might have different views, but down to the core, we're all the same, dude.
Yeah.
I think, you know, for the most part, people just want, you know, the best for their family for the most part, and, you know, don't mess with my space and just let me keep my peace.
I think it would blow people's minds if you really think about it. All these disagreements that we have, you know, out in the media now, probably about 95% of what we all think we all agree on. It's that little bit of a percent where we're on the extreme ends, and that's all we're focusing on.
Yeah.
You know, so like, oh, okay, so you like, you know, this car brand, I don't. No, but everything else we agree on. So how about we focus on that and go with it? Like, no, it's because you did this, and part of the world that we live in, man.
Yeah.
Jabbar, this has been an awesome conversation, and we're almost at 2 hours, man. This has been awesome.
Didn't seem like it at all, dude. Thank you.
Everybody has said that who sat in that same chair. It's like, how long has it been? Oh, it's been, because it just flows, man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, what am I talking about for 2 hours with this guy, dude? Like, man, but yeah, that's. I mean, you very good job asking questions and prompting questions and whatnot, and it's awesome, dude, for sure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the information that you're going to help to give out to the rest of the world. Because one of the reasons, excuse me, the main reason why I do this is because, like we were talking about earlier, I really believe that people have control over every aspect of their life, and so many people think that they don't. They think that they can't get a certain weight because that's what they were born with, or they're not going to get a certain job because of their education, or they can't do this because of some other factor, and they've accepted that, when really most of the time you do have control over it. Let's talk to people who actually have been in similar situations. How did they overcome those things? Like, you know, like perfect example for you. You get out of the NFL. You could have easily said, well, that sucks to be me, and they kicked me out. But you go to NFL Europe, you go to the CFL, you work to try and perfect your craft to get back to wanting to get to. You didn't let it bring you down, and ultimately, like you said, you have full control of what you need to do. And maybe there were times where you didn't give yourself the best effort, but you knew that already.
Yeah.
Because maybe it wasn't the best thing for you. Like if it was, you would have done it. If it wasn't, but I made that choice.
Exactly.
You didn't blame anybody else saying it's his fault or the coach's fault or whatever.
Yeah. It hasn't really been like that. Just it is what it is, man. Just figure it out and move forward and see if you can accomplish your goal. If not, it's not the end of the world if you don't accomplish it. But
not the end of the world at all.
It's trying though.
Exactly. There's always a way to get things done. You may not get to where you think you need to get to or where you feel like you should, but where can you get to that actually is very satisfying?
Yeah.
That actually is a reflection of your talents and not comparing yourself to the next guy, to the guy that got drafted in the first round, the guy that can do this. Well, you also don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe he is the best guy in the world, but on the field, but behind the scenes, what's he dealing with? And then do you want that life?
Yeah, right.
And I'm sure you've probably seen that throughout your career in the NFL. The guys on paper, everybody, but let me tell you something about what he's dealing with.
Yeah, I've only played 7 years in the league, but I mean, I've got teammates that play, just about at the same time, but new hips at like 35, new knees at 35, replacements at 35, 40 years old, and or just aching out of bed and just all kind of, not pill addictions, but, have to take pills to function, but it's crazy.
Yeah, and you came out of the league relatively unscathed. No major injuries. You got a clean bill of health for your CTE.
For the most part,
so, the fact that you can say you walk away with your health where so many guys couldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big thing right there.
Huge, for sure.
Jabari, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Everybody who's watching, thank you so much for watching on YouTube. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and please share with all your friends and family so we can get Jabari's message out there. If you're listening to the show on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting site, please leave a review, leave a comment for me. The more that our listeners see that people are liking the video and the episode, the more it's going to get pushed out there. So thank you so much for everybody who's doing that. And if you would like to support the show, I do have a Patreon channel. The link is in the description, either Spotify or on YouTube. You can go to patreon.com/Real Talks on the Rocks if you'd like to make a donation to help support the channel. But thank you, Jabari, for coming on.
Thank you.
We got to make it happen again. And I got to make time to sit down with your father again, because he's got a lot to talk about. I know he wants to get
4 hours for that one, player.
I know we do. Thank you, Jabari. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a good one.
Take it easy.